So we have a responsibility to step into our bigness, not remain in our smallness because of the past, but to heal the past, grow, learn, and step into our greatness and be of service to others in our greatness by being a beacon of light.
Welcome back to From Darkness to Light, a conversation series where we explore the pathways that lead us from anxiety and depression into healing. Today, I'm joined by someone whose work has deeply impacted the way many of us view the connection between mind, body, and spirit. Dianne Porchia. You may recognize her from the groundbreaking documentary Heal on Gaia, where her integrative approach to psychotherapy and spiritual healing has changed and inspired countless lives. Dianne brings a rare gift, the ability to help us uncover the hidden stories that we keep inside our bodies to transform suffering into wisdom. We'll dive into her story, her practices, and her vision of what it truly means to heal at the deepest level. I can't wait to share this dialogue with you. It's an invitation to witness the resilience of the human spirit and to discover that the light lives within us all. If you do like this conversation, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. And with no further ado, Dianne Porchia. Thank you so much for being here, Dianne Porchia. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with me, and you are such an incredibly multi-skilled holistic therapist, and there's so much that you do in terms of the spiritual psychology and the heart-brain coherence and the sacred anger work and all of this stuff. How would you best describe what you do?
Wow. Well, thank you, Matreya. And thank you for having me on your program. I'm honored. So what is my work? Is that what your question is?
I think so. How would you best describe what you do? Because
Okay.
there's so much that you do that it's kind of hard to grasp.
Yes, I know. So I've been doing this work for 25 years. And I call it, and originally, 25 years ago, I called it holistic stress reduction to support immune function because I have a master's in spiritual psychology. And 25 years ago, anything that was labeled spiritual seemed very woo woo. And so I wanted to avoid that label because I'm a very grounded person. My work is very grounded. It's not ethereal, it's very grounded and practical. And the important aspect is this spiritual perspective. And the spiritual perspective just acknowledges first that each one of us is a spiritual being having our own unique human experience on earth. And from that kind of shift in perspective, we do, healing work. And so when I started off 25 years ago, I actually started not with Portia's Wish, which is what my brand is now. WISH is an acronym for Whole Integrated Self-Health, Path to Healing, Loving, and Living Consciously. 25 years ago, it was called Passing Performance, and I was working with the group of law students that wanted to pass the California State Bar. And so in California, there's a 50% failure rate for that. And so I was applying holistic stress reduction techniques to address people that had panic attacks or performance anxiety, where they knew the information, but when it came to a critical testing examination, this 3-day test, to pass the bar exam, they would freeze up and they couldn't access the information in their mind. So working with them, and I was still using the spiritual perspective. They just didn't know it. So the work that I would do was very, heart and soul centered. And I downplayed in fact, I never even called, I didn't say what my designation my degree was in. I just avoided that word spiritual because especially with a law student population, I wanted to be grounded. I wanted them to perceive me as very grounded. But the work that I do is heart and soul centered healing work, and it's getting to the core of limiting beliefs, traumas that may have one may have experienced in their past, and healing those. So I think what differentiates my work from other people, other therapists, is that it drops down. So most therapy, cognitive and behavioral approaches, uh, deals up here in the mind, right? The intellect. And in the 25 years that I've been see over and over again that the healing doesn't take place in the intellectual mind with the understanding alone. The healing has to take place at deeper levels of the heart, the soul, and the subconscious level. And that's what I'm able to facilitate with my clients. Whether it was the law students, they didn't know it,
Mm.
or the work that I'm doing now, that I can openly say, yes, I'm a spiritual therapist, and using the principles and practice of mind body medicine and heart brain coherence to heal, right? From the core levels. So it's experiential healing, which is, beautiful.
Yeah, it's a shame that we see this spiritual word still as something which is woo-woo, because I have just as much problem with the term mental health now, because it's such an
Oh,
ambiguous word, and especially I mean, from here in the UK anyway, we sort of like to use the word mental health and mental health, but no one really knows what it
mm,
means. No one really knows
mm,
the connection between the mind and the body, and the heart and the spirit and the soul, and all of these things that make this experience holistic. We sort of relegate it to something which is simply an intellectual process, like you said. And when actually science now is showing all of this stuff, but it's yet to kind of trickle its way down into um, the regular person's consciousness in what they believe and what they've been conditioned to believe. So
right.
I think maybe a nice way to move into this conversation about anxiety and depression is how do we start to unlock some of these symptoms, traumas, subconscious psychological processes that are happening for the ordinary person. How do we actually start to access these things which are extremely ethereal, like you said?
Yeah. Well, I want to mention also that I'm really grateful to be, featured in a movie, Heal documentary, which I believe is still available on Amazon Prime Video. It came out in 2017. It shows the work that I do, this type of, uh, spiritual therapy, if you will, with an advanced stage cancer client of mine that remains cancer-free after a stage 4 colorectal cancer diagnosis in 2013. So when Elizabeth came to work with me, she had never known of anyone that survived that type of a diagnosis. And so she actually came to me to make peace with the probability of dying. And in our work, we did very significant healing work, and much of the issues that she was facing are not necessarily revealed in the movie, but the movie Heal documentary is a beautiful introduction to these concepts of mind body medicine, and heart brain coherence. The work of Joe Dispenza has made that very
Mm,
very popular now,
yeah.
and all these notable names in science and medicine and spirituality that are featured in that film. So if anyone is confused or doesn't understand what this means, I would direct them to that movie because it's a beautiful um, kind of roadmap, if you will, to how this mind, body, heart, soul medicine, I call it, is done, and also the science behind it, which is beautiful. So Dr. Bruce Lipton, who's featured in the film, um, has a presentation he's, called Biology of Belief. And he has a beautiful illustration of how that works mechanically in the body with on the human cell, right? From the
Mm,
human cell
mm-hmm,
level,
mm-hmm,
cellular biologist. Um, so once you understand that kind of connection, the heart brain connection, the power of the mind to heal the body, um, then there's all sorts of possibilities that open up for healing. And what was so frustrating for me, in years back when I was married and having, my marriage falling apart, and the therapy that we had received was, cognitive behavioral therapy. That was all that was
mm,
available, really. And I just saw that it fell so short of what really needed to be addressed. Everything was up here in the mind and the intellect, and you get stuck in these loops of he said or she said, or it just goes nowhere. And I knew there was a missing link somewhere. And when I stumbled upon this master's course in spiritual psychology, um, I was looking for the next step in my kind of healing career.
mm,
And it was like, yes, that's it. That I didn't understand what spiritual psychology even meant, but I knew that that was the element that was missing. And so I just signed up and did that, and then got more understanding. I also had a background in yoga and dance and art. And so my work was already kind of uh, body centered or body
right.
focused. So the work that I do now is a lot of somatic work, right? So to access those deeper levels of the heart and the soul and the subconscious level, I have processes that uh, bring us down, somatic processes that get us down into those deeper levels. And then we're dialoguing on those deeper levels, and all sorts of information comes up through that process. 98% of the time, the information that comes forward is information from early childhood. And when that information comes forward, then we're really able to move into the healing portion of the work, right? So we access it through this um, somatic or body awareness and what the body is holding on to energetically that
Mm-hmm,
registers in the nervous system,
mm-hmm,
right? And the mind subconsciously. And then and dialogue with that. And then, when we're working at those deeper levels, um, it's usually inner child healing work. So there could be a wounded or traumatized little child that still resides inside the adult, you know,
yes.
and an inner saboteur voice that may be residing in the subconscious level that believes I'm not good enough, not worthy, not smart enough, not
Mm-hmm,
lovable, whatever that is.
yes.
And working at those deeper levels to transform that inner saboteur voice into an inner ally to support one's goals in health or wellness or love or success professionally, whatever, those limiting beliefs are, to kind of break through those, and also to heal that little child and any events that took place early on in childhood that had gotten imprinted in the subconscious mind. That takes place roughly between the ages of like 3 and 12,
Yeah.
you know? And that imprint becomes the default program, if you will, for how the adult responds to the world in any given situation,
Yes.
you know?
So we're coming back into the body. We're discovering this inner child that has been locked away in our subconscious mind, but is still having an effect on our nervous system, on our organs. It's sort of that code, that frequency of whatever has affected us in our early life is still imprinted on us, like you said, and it's almost puppeteering us through our adult life.
Yes.
And a lot of these times they're locked away in the recesses of our mind where it's extremely hard to access by just doing mental exercises, but actually we're coming into the body and a bodily awareness in order to have to actually start having a constructive dialogue with that thing. Um, how
Yeah.
how do we start having a constructive dialogue with something that we attach to as our own personal self? How do we start to create that space in order to have a dialogue with something which, yeah, we identify with as us? Because surely that there needs to be something then which splits our identification from that in order to have a loving dialogue with it.
Well, the first is to access it,
Yeah.
right? And to gain access through, the somatic work and techniques that I use. And then dialoguing with that. And when we're working at those deeper levels, it's a whole nother experience. It's experiential healing as opposed to intellectual understanding.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So sometimes I know, and this goes into another realm, but there's, plant medicines,
Mm-hmm.
right, that have become very popular. And oftentimes people will want to try a plant medicine to shortcut that process and get to that heart brain coherence, or that, pulling away of that veil
Mm.
to see what's underneath it. And yes, that can be done. And I want to say that that isn't necessary at all. And I've had plenty of experiences where no plant medicine or substance has been a part of that ability to connect. And that, gosh, it's, what I could describe it, kind of God realm or
Yeah.
love. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what it is. It's love. That's what heals, is love. And oh gosh, yeah. So
I think so many people are disconnected
mm,
from their sense of self. And like you said, those plant medicines give you a short window in which you experience that wholeness again, where you experience that
mm,
oneness again. But after that period, it's sort of your job to integrate that so that you can work and become that person who you experienced in that trip or whatever it was continuously, and you sort of have to do the work to then become that person in your regular
yeah,
life. And it just gives you a little window of an opportunity to experience what that could be like, but it's not the full whack. It's not the full experience. Um,
yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, it can give you a very full experience. However, what you said is really key, is after that glimpse into who you really are as a spiritual being, that heart-centered awareness, or that bigger picture, of who you are in this bigger picture of the cosmos or something.
hmm,
You need to be able to integrate that work,
hmm,
you know, and too often the big peak experiences that people have through plant medicines doesn't get integrated, and they're kind of left with, like, where do I go from here? And then they believe falsely that they need to continue doing the plant medicine to stay in that realm.
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Rather than integrating. So they'll, you know, they become, I don't know, like an addiction almost. Okay, I got to do another one. I have to have another journey, another experience, and nothing ever really gets integrated.
Do you think we are afraid of being healed?
Hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, fear is really the opposite and the roadblock to who we really are, right?
Mm,
Fear of anything, fear of rejection, fear of not doing it right, fear of being judged by others, fear of, judging ourselves, failing. Um, and those are all the roadblocks to who we really are as a spiritual being and the love consciousness that that's possible to live in this lifetime.
mm, yes. Um, how So we kind of have this stuff stored in our emotional body and in our
Mm,
subconscious mind. And you were talking about the work of Bruce Lipton,
mm,
and he talks a lot about how now consciousness is what is ruling the cells rather than the cells or the DNA generating the consciousness or generating the environment. Actually, the conscious environment is controlling uh, the the f- the production of the DNA and how that responds. How can we start, I guess, clearing this emotional body in simple ways for people who have never approached or haven't approached their healing journey yet and don't have much knowledge about that. Are there
mhm.
ways that they can start to, like you said, get access to this emotional body and start clearing it so that they can have control over their own lives again?
Yeah. So what you're talking about in referring to Bruce Lipton's work, excuse me, and the biology of belief, he describes so beautifully how the human cell responds to its environment, right? And that environment can either be the real environment or the perceived environment. So these thoughts and beliefs and limiting beliefs or trauma that is the filter that we see our environment in affects a chemical reaction in our body, right? So if we're looking at our environment either consciously or subconsciously, from a place of fear that we need to protect ourselves from, then that creates and triggers a chemical reaction in the body, which is the release of the stress hormones, right?
Mm,
And the cortisols. Now, cortisol isn't all bad. In fact, it gets us out of bed in the morning. We need that, that boost to meet deadlines and to get us to, engage in the world. And it also keeps our immune system strong when it gets tested. However, when we are holding on to thoughts and beliefs of judgment or these lower vibration emotions, right? Where we are ruminating over the past for a long period of time, and it keeps those stress hormones elevated
mm,
for a longer period of time. So, like chronic stress, right?
mm,
That suppressed mental and emotional upset or stress. It's like that steady, slow drip of the cortisol that is slowly chipping away at the immune system and making the body more susceptible to illness and disease and even cancers. The opposite of that is also true, which is when we are living in our joy, in our inspiration, in our light, connected to our divine self and that energy, that also triggers a chemical reaction in the body. And that's the release of the endorphins and the feel good hormones. In addition, when we're in those positive states of mind body, we're producing, it stimulates the production of T cells. And T cells, along with the helper cells, are what keep cancer cells in check and in balance so that they don't proliferate, right?
Mm.
Also, it stimulates the production of immunoglobulin A, or IgA for short, which is the immune system's primary defense against bacteria and viruses. So, how we're holding our thoughts and emotions in our body, mind, trigger a chemical reaction that either suppress or inhibit immune function or support immune function, right? And so when we're talking about the DNA, so Bruce Lipton talks about the blueprint, our DNA blueprint that we come into this lifetime with, and this concept of epigenetics. So regardless of the blueprint that we came in with, through the miracle of epigenetics, we can change our blueprint, right? By or not to change the blueprint, but change the expression of
Mm.
that blueprint, right? So just because we come in with, let's say, a genetic predisposition to some illness or disease doesn't mean that it needs to be expressed in the body.
Yes.
If we love our body, if we, heal the, any past things that have been creating chronic suppressed mental and emotional stress in our bodies, we can enter into that state of living our lives in joy, you know, authentically, not the spiritual bypass, which I always caution about, right? So, oftentimes in the spiritual kind of communities, um, they'll take the retreats, they'll read the books, they'll, meditate, they'll do all this stuff, they'll speak the language, and to embody that is something else. You
Yeah.
can't like talk your way out of or rationalize your way out of thinking or believing a certain way if there's a really wounded inner child, traumatized inner child that's residing in the inside, or a really loud inner saboteur voice that's residing in the subconscious level, right? You have to first do that deeper healing work at those deeper levels of the heart, the soul, and the subconscious level. So there's no, spiritual bypasses here,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
I think it's extremely liberating though to know that that something isn't necessarily hereditary, or that you can unlock the DNA to a certain degree where it can start to express in different ways. And I think I heard a story about a child who was adopted by a family who had a history of a certain type of cancer within that family. And although the child didn't have any of the same DNA because it was an adopted child, it ended up having the same type of cancer that was hereditary through that family line. So it's kind of
Yeah.
proof there that our beliefs can create these things, and that our
Mm.
emotions fundamentally are at the root of these physical symptoms that we're feeling. And this is sort of linking with the Chinese medicine way of seeing things, the Taoist way of seeing things, that what lies at the heart of all disease or dis-ease is an emotion, has an emotional root to
Yeah.
it. And when you talk about spiritual bypassing, it's interesting because I find today within the spiritual community that you get a hell of a lot of rewards for for staying on that healing wheel. It's sort of like we get half baked and we get a little
Mm,
bit of knowledge and we like to ride that little bit of knowledge, and we feel tremendous amount of community whilst we are going through the healing process because we're meeting with all these different types of people who are also healing, and we get pity and we get love from being somebody who is unhealed. And that's why I said earlier, maybe are we somewhat afraid to actually fully heal, because life
mm,
after being fully healed is feels like quite a daunting idea, really, because it's kind of like, well, what else do I do now? Do I just, well, you go and enjoy your life? Well, how? Well, you just live. Like, you live. What do you mean? Like, I don't have to do anything anymore. And I think there was a Buddhist lama called Chogyam Trungpa, and he said that we are still living with our training wheels on. We're still
yeah.
living with our dummies in our mouths because we need our yoga mat. We need this. We need our matcha drink in the morning. We need all of this stuff, which is totally fine because all of this is part of the healing journey. But like you said, that there is a way now in which you can spiritually bypass and justify all of these things in an extremely intelligent and nuanced way. But actually getting down to the crux of this problem is extremely painful, and it's extremely confronting, and
Yeah.
that process, I think, can, once people start to open that doorway to that and they really feel the pain that's inside themselves, it can be incredibly
Mm,
off-putting. It's like, well, no, I'm going to shut that door, keep that basement closed.
yeah.
And then we hit a healing crisis, and then we have
Mhm.
no choice but to go down that path. Um,
Mm,
what would you say to somebody who maybe has that door ajar to their own
mm,
subconscious mind,
yeah.
and is kind of and it's a very scary process to go in there, but
Mm, yeah.
it is rewarding, and there is a life on the other side of that, surely.
Yeah. Yeah. So you brought up a lot of different things that play into this, which is really good. Um, fear of fear of your greatness,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
So a lot of people will stay stuck in that wheel, that cycle of trauma or, something. It's like trauma bonding. Two people come together because they have these things to heal. And so they stay in that cycle, that little, I don't know. Yeah, that little cycle themselves. And that's how they bond. And I want to say that that's okay. Okay, because the other um, spiritual principle is that uh, don't judge where you're at. Okay, so yes, people come together because of their trauma bonding. And from the spiritual perspective, that is kind of the function and why they were attracted to each other. And that, because it gives each person the opportunity through those those
Mirrors.
kind of blocks and barriers
Mm,
to heal,
mm,
right? And then once that particular issue is healed, you'll find that those types of people and situations just stop showing up in your life, right? It's like you no longer need, and it doesn't mean that you are better than someone else or someone else is lower than you are. That is a mistake. That comes, that's the ego that's saying, oh, I'm enlightened and you're not, and I'm better than you.
mm,
No, no, we're all here to be teachers and students of each other. We're all in this, this opportunity together. And each person has their own rate and speed and experience of growth, personal growth, healing, and learning, right? No one is better or worse than the other.
mm,
So there's just meeting at the same level. So meeting at the same, let's say you're meeting at the same level because you have some things to work out together in this relationship that you're in. And and hopefully, you learn from that and then you move on and then it's like, well, okay, maybe another issue comes up with someone else, and that's another opportunity, right? So don't get stuck in the judgment of someone else or the judgment of yourself of where you're at. It's all part of the journey. It's
So,
all part of your personal journey.
so can we maybe see emotions and who we are attracting through those through those mirrors as something which is more like a resonance uh, of frequency than it is like you said, a statement or a judgment of where you're at, and we start to beat ourselves up about it, and then that eventually turns into, once you overcome something, uh, potentially I'm better than that person, or I'm now enlightened, or I'm something. But actually, that these emotions hold a frequency that have a magnetic power to them in order to mirror back to us where we need to heal and where we need to do that work, and we can sort of let go of a sort of personal attachment to those,
Yeah.
and use it as evidence, really, of where we're at, and how we can be honest about where we're at and be honest with other people,
Mhm.
and help each other through this healing journey.
Yeah, well said. Yes.
uh,
Yes, we are attracted to like energy, right?
mm,
So energy is attracted to like energy. And if that energy is wounded, then that's attracted to other wounded energy. And might not be an exact mirror of each other. It could be something else, different types of wounds that come together. And it's really, each person is offering the opportunity to the other to heal that. Doesn't make, anyone better or worse than another. No, my wound is, more important than yours. Nothing like that.
well, yeah, well, we can get extremely self-righteous when it comes to our wounds, and be quite defensive over the fact that we have a right to feel that way, and
Mm.
that is something which is a subtle saboteur. Um and and I think what's interesting is that this saboteur that you were speaking about um can become autonomous and actually start to intervene itself in our lives to make things happen from the subconscious space. And we might, maybe you could touch on, how we might be in a victim mentality about what's going on with us in our lives, but that there could be something deeper that we need to address, that is actually our own selves sabotaging our own lives.
Yes, yes, and that's what I would call the, living unconsciously. So the majority of people in the world are living unconsciously, right?
Mm.
It's only once that, in my experience in the work that I do with, just hundreds and hundreds of people from all over the world, is that it takes some big upset in one's life, death, a serious diagnosis, a loss of job, or series of, like big upsets before someone starts to question, wow, maybe this kind of strategy that I've been living in, with my life isn't serving me. It's not really working because these patterns keep repeating over and over again. And, what is the meaning of all of this? And, um, so, yeah, most people are living pretty unconsciously, and until there's like some sort of wake up call that the person realizes, oh, maybe I gotta try to do things differently. Maybe there's something inside of me that is creating these these situations that keep repeating in my life. And they go, okay, well, and then they might stumble upon, a Heal documentary, or start hearing this language and recognize that, oh yeah, that sounds kind of like me, and embark upon this personal journey of healing and growth and learning.
So I know that it might be difficult for some people who maybe, have some disassociation because of trauma to actually
Mm,
inhabit their bodies, whole in a whole way. I know that was something that I struggled with on my journey, is that it actually felt like I was floating above my body and I couldn't actually come
mhm,
down into my body in order to experience life in a full way, because I felt like my body and the world was an extremely unsafe place. So I could
yeah,
validate being dissociated in myself, because the world down there is a scary place, and my body has experienced so much that is also a scary place for my psyche to inhabit. Um,
mm,
what's maybe something in the toolkit somatically, something simple which can start to invite the consciousness back down into the
mm,
body to start this
mm.
healing journey? Um,
Yeah. So meditation is always a great practice. So quieting that overactive monkey mind,
mm,
sitting in nature. So when I meditate, it's always outdoors. Spending time in nature, connecting with, the beauty, the divine energy that is available free of charge to everybody. You know, go out in nature and let yourself quiet your mind, quiet your nervous system. Um, Practice a mindful meditation walk in
mm,
nature. You don't have to sit quietly if it's too hard to sit quietly because your mind is all active and stuff. Practice walking in nature and making that a mindful meditation where you are really noticing every present thing, whether it's the birds, the temperature of the air, the ants that are crawling around, if it's the ocean, it's the feel of that ocean breeze on your skin, maybe the smell of the saltiness in your nostrils, being present, practicing being present in your body, not out of your body, but in your body, grounded on Mother Earth. Okay. Visualizing yourself as grounded and firmly planted and anchored upon Mother Earth with the, like the roots of a tree, roots from the soles of your feet entering into that nourishing body of Mother Earth, standing tall, reaching up to the light, the sky, Father Sky, and receiving that energizing sunlight, grounded from below, receiving energy sunlight from above, and standing tall in that and embodied in that, and feeling the safety in that,
mm.
right? Practicing feeling the safety in that.
And now we know that it's not just something which is woo-woo and ungrounded, like you said before, but actually we know now that putting our bare feet on the earth can change our blood markers and reduce our cortisol levels, and start to transform these physical processes that are going on with our body. And I think that needs to sort of trickle down into the mainstream, so that people sort of aren't conditioned to believe that we are separate from nature, that actually we are animals, we are nature. And I think we sort of see now that the human configuration as something which is born in cities and born out of cities, or born out of concrete, that is completely separate and cut off from
Yeah.
nature. But actually we need it. It's integral. It
Yeah.
is us, and there are profound functions that helps us with when we get in touch with it. And it's something that isn't. It's not a luxury anymore. It's something that
Mm.
actually really needs
Yeah.
to happen in order to
Yeah.
go on this healing journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And with all the advancements in AI technology now, there's that kind of risk of detaching even more from nature. And so I just, want to emphasize the importance of balancing out our technological advances and all the things that it's doing for us, and remaining connected to nature, you know?
Yes, most definitely. I think maybe a good way to wrap this up, um, so that people can access these sort of, at least understand now that that the emotional process that are going on in their mind, and the whirlwind of thoughts that they might be experiencing, um, is because there is something deep trapped inside the body or inside the subconscious mind that needs accessing, that needs some patience, some love, some attention. And yeah, if we can calm our nervous systems down, then that might give us a key to unlock the door to potential miraculous healing sometimes, and even someone can listen to your message and watch the Heal documentary and see that even somebody who has been diagnosed with, terminal cancer, that actually they can find a route to that cause if they can access that subconscious mind enough. And uh, and there is a path to healing no matter what state you could be in. And that's quite that's extremely liberating and miraculous that our body can
It's
support
not.
us in doing that.
Yeah. I do want to say that, I work with, well, a lot of people. 35% of the people that I work with are diagnosed with some sort of advanced stage cancer, meaning stage 4 something. And the other 65% have some sort of autoimmune disorder, stress related. It's what autoimmune disorders are. So it's really interesting. Um, and the healing, um, the healing has to, take place at those deeper levels of the heart, the soul, the subconscious. There can't be a spiritual bypass. There's, and also there is this concept of the soul contract, right? So if someone is given a life-threatening diagnosis, we can do healing work. That doesn't necessarily mean that person is going to survive that diagnosis, because there is this thing called a spiritual contract that, you know, each one of us being a spiritual being, we arrive on this planet on time and we leave on time. And none of us know what that exit ticket is, when that exit ticket is, what the vehicle of that exit ticket is going to be, right? We don't know. That part of kind of embracing that concept that we arrive on time, we leave on time, that there's, always the possibility of death that's right there. Um, Embracing that, which means that we're accepting the inevitability of our death at some point, is part of the healing process, so that we're not living in constant fear of death,
I think
right?
yes, 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 beautiful. Yeah.
So, in fact, is it Nitan Han,
Mm.
that the book of the death and dying, he talks about that in living, embracing, living each day as if, death is
On your
right around the
shoulder.
corner.
Yes.
Yeah. So that you can live more fully. I get chills. Live more fully and present in each moment, in each interaction,
Wow.
right?
Yeah. I think so much of our anxiety can be whittled down to, like you said, our fear that we are impermanent. And after this journey, who really knows what happens? But there
Yeah.
is a great deep power in being able to be accepting of that and settle down into that. And
Mm.
and that is part of the healing journey, like you said, to
Yeah.
eradicate such a fundamental fear within the human body. And if one can be accepting of that, then paradoxically, you can unlock a tremendous amount of joy in the fact that this whole thing is impermanent. Who knows? Who knows? Any day this could happen. And like you said, the soul contract is that we have a specific curriculum when we come down to Earth School, and we don't necessarily need to feel victimized. Then, if we see that, like you said, as a soul contract, as a journey that we have uh, agreed with ourselves to experience a certain curriculum when we come to this life, and then we can feel kind of empowered by that, and then things become more workable and more malleable within
Mm,
our own journey because we've decided to go on this and encounter these challenges for our own learning and our own teaching.
yeah, and in addition to that, there's a responsibility, right? That each one of us has a responsibility during our lifetime. So we've been gifted this beautiful life, this beautiful vessel, right? And we have a, responsibility during our lifetime to give back and to be of, service to other people along the journey. And the best way that we can do that is to fully step into our unique talents and gifts, right? So we have a responsibility to step into our bigness, not remain in our smallness because of the past, but to heal the past, grow, learn, and step into our greatness and be of service to others in our greatness by being a beacon of light, right? I, I think of myself as a light bearer, beacon of light. And this is the responsibility that we have to ourselves and to the greater good of all concerned.
I think that's a beautiful way to end this conversation, Deanne. I really appreciate it. There's been so much there in that that we can take from, and I'm appreciative of your beautiful vessel. I'm not so sure about my vessel being that beautiful, but I can definitely see it in yours. So thank you very much for having this conversation, and
Yeah, absolutely.
it's been enlightening. So thank you
Oh,
very
thank you.
much.
I'm glad that you're getting benefit from it, and I hope that all of your listeners will also get benefit. And you have some beautiful talents, and I just encourage you to step fully into that and be the light bearer that you were meant to be during this lifetime. And
Yeah, I definitely
through your
struggle.
unique talents and gifts.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
definitely struggle with the idea of stepping into one's greatness and one's bigness because there is a confliction there that I think some people might feel with the idea of being humble or being or
Mm,
humility, and I think that we like to that there's a currency in that which can get confusing for the ego mind when it wants to step inside that greatness, and there is a self-doubt and there is a block there because one doesn't want to come across as not humble or not without humility, and
yeah.
I think I definitely know some people who are phenomenal human beings, but there's almost a shield there or something
Mm,
which doesn't allow them to realize that. Maybe as we go through this journey of healing that inner child, like you were talking about, then
mm.
we can probably find the root of our smallness is probably in those early child experiences.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah.
Well,
So,
thank you.
I want to let everyone know that I'm still, receiving clients. I work with people from all over the world remotely
Amazing,
like this, and
amazing.
I love my work. I can't ever imagine retiring because I get to meet so many fabulous people from different parts of the world and cultures and backgrounds and get to see miracles happen all the time. It's wonderful.
Yes, and thank you for giving me faith and giving people listening to this faith that miracles are possible, and and that and that it's not something which, like you said, is can't be grounded in science and grounded in something which is actual processes taking place, but actually, these miracles are grounded in something which can happen to each and every one of us. And they're not
Yeah.
just things that are picked for the lucky ones, but actually maybe we need to choose ourselves more, and then we can
Mm.
access the miracles that you are giving the world. Thank you very much.
All right. Pleasure meeting you, Matreya.
Thank you
Bye
so
for
much.
now.
Bye for now. Thank you so much.